What's going on? It's Yadi Alameen, the Qigong therapist. Nothing to blip this time. And I'm reading my handy dandy little, what do they call these? The quick studies on reflexology, no doubt. And, reflexology of the hands and feet, their theories are a little different than mine because they're using sort of the old Ayurvedic Indian maps, whereas I tend to use, and it's interesting too because if you know anything about acupuncture, you'll see some crossover between some of the meridians, the locations of the point. For example, this stomach point on the hand here. What do we have? Stomach. Okay, yeah, stomach point, which is at the tip of the kidney. There's also an earth point on a metal meridian, so earth representing stomach and spleen. It's pretty interesting, some of the crossover in reflexology. But I'm doing this video to really help explain people who are new to reflexology and new to acupuncture or acupressure what exactly is happening. And it's not what you think is happening. From time to time people come in and they say, I don't believe in what you do. And that's fine. I'm not really even asking you to believe in what I do. To be honest, I don't believe in what I do. It works. I know it works. Whether I believe it works, but it's not really about belief. It's not a faith-based, religious sort of system. Reflexology, as most people understand it, is that the body has networks. Some people say they're nerves, nervous system networks, and the relationship between the points and the zones on the foot, the ear, the hand, the scalp, the belly, and the back represent different nervous connections that correspond to other places in the body. So where you see here, they're saying this is pelvis, hip, access points, and you'll see the colons here. You'll see the ascending transverse, the transverse colon, the descending transverse, and then the transverse. People will say, well, that's just my foot, and the theory that most reflexologists give you is, well, here on the map, this point, represents your whatever organ, and by pushing that point, the organ does what it's supposed to do. And if it hurts, there's something wrong with that organ. That's what traditional reflexology has taught, that the body has sort of like a microcosmic map of the macrocosmic organs, like the whole body is reflexed on the foot. But what makes reflexology work is it's actually not what you think. Now, whether or not the map's right, that's not what this video is about. I think if you study a little bit, I know this is backwards, y'all, but physics, if you read a little bit about thermodynamics, right? Is that showing up? I know it's backwards. So the first law of thermodynamics is the change in energy of the system is determined by the difference between the heat gained by the system and the work performed by the system on the mechanical surrounding. Let me say this again. The change in energy of the system is determined by the difference between the heat gained by the system and the work performed by the system on the mechanical surrounding. Okay, so let me see if I can explain this. This is really cool. We're talking about thermodynamics as a law of physics. You can actually change the heat in the body by touching somebody. A touch in a certain place can cause heat. Now, what causes heat? Heat is caused by movement. If something is sitting still, chances are it won't warm up unless there's something warming it. And if there is something warming it, the warming has to take place by a rapid movement of cells, a rapid movement of molecules, because it's this movement, sort of a friction, that creates heat. Now, when I touch a person in a reflexology setting, and let's just say for argument's sake, then I'm working on the brain points here. I'm working on the neck points, whatever. By me touching those points, there's a certain amount of energy within the system and there's a certain amount of work being done already. You know, the body's doing what it does normally to balance itself. When I add stimulation to the body, based on my own body's activity, my own body's energy level, be it the temperature in my hand, be it the movement of my blood, you know, or even my psychological intent. You understand what I mean? Those all change the energy in the body. The thermodynamic principle is that energy, again, the change in energy is determined by the difference between the heat gained by the system and the work performed by the system on the mechanical surrounding. So if I loosen up a tender point in your foot, now the work that's being done to you know, to neutralize the lactic acid, for example, in that tender point is different. It's not required. I've already created movement. By creating movement, now there's a change in energy. When the energy is changed, the whole system is affected. Now, is it really that I'm pushing certain points and these points, you know, make the organs do something? Like if I hit the kidney point, does it make the kidney do something? It could be that, you know, but in my lifetime, I might not have enough time or money to study that. I know that when there's a change in energy in the body, when something that's being supported by the blood, which is, you know, moved by the heart and by the lungs, you know, from the expansion and contraction of the breath, when I change that work, right, I've literally changed your whole body. Now you could say, well, if I just rub my shoulder, am I not changed? Is there not a thermodynamic activity going on? Of course there is. But if you use thermography, thermal photography, and you check and see what happens during a reflexology session, which is the closest you'll ever get to scientific evidence, look at the heat and the temperature change in the body. When I push on certain parts of your feet, if you go to the place in the anatomy which is represented here, say the kidneys, you actually go to your lower back where the kidney is, you're going to feel a change in temperature. Many people, when they get reflexology, say, I just felt relaxed. You're going to feel relaxed because blood is moving. There's a change in energy. There's a change in temperature. There's a change in movement. Okay? These are physics principles. The other physics principle is inertia and kinetic energy. Inert energy and kinetic energy. And these have a lot to do with the yin and yang principles of the body. I may talk about inertia in another video when we talk about yin and yang. But when something becomes kinetic and it becomes moving and dynamic, it stays in motion. This is the law of physics. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion, right? Well, once something is moved by me or any practitioner in the sense of a reflexology session, any point, those pathways, those neural pathways in the central nervous system, in the peripheral nervous system, in the blood, and in all the other fluids and the humors of the body continue to stay in motion. You have changed the entire system. Given an awareness of this principle, that you are actually changing the energy and the movement and the output of this whole system just by touching a small part on somebody's body, a small part on somebody's hand or somebody's foot, you're changing the job of the body. You're changing the energy of this person. If you understand it from a thermodynamic principle and from just you know, basics in physics, that you move something and it stays in motion, right? Then you understand a little bit more about what reflexology does. It's not a magic button that I push that fixes your heart. You know, it's changing the workload of the body. It's literally changing the pH, the chemistry. It changes the workload on the kidneys. It immediately has an effect on your nervous system. And these things that you do continue to work just based on the idea that energy in motion stays in motion. This is the idea that you want as a practitioner when you're doing reflexology, when you're doing acupuncture, when you're doing Shui Na massage, whatever you're doing therapeutically, is to be aware of these scientific principles. When you change one thing, you change the entire system. Once the change has been made, the system will override whatever flaw in the program created the imbalance in the first place. So this is something you can tell your clients. This is something you can know before you come see me. This is Yadi Alamin. If you have questions, give me a buzz. I'll put my number down there. A lot of programs coming out this summer. There's a complete training program for people who want to learn Oriental medicine but don't want to pay $80,000. Be well and stay well. We'll talk soon. Bless.